What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Concrete Edge right here on Deco-Crete TV. My name's Jeff, and on today's episode, we're going to be showing you guys an easy way to create a slight texture on a urethane top coat that'll make that final outcome less shiny, more durable, and even less slippery. So stay tuned, and you're going to learn all about it. For those of you guys that install metallic epoxy, I'm guessing that one of the biggest struggles that you guys go through is the top coats. It sure would be a hell of a lot easier if we just didn't even need to do the top coats at all. But if you ever talk to yourself into just leaving epoxy all on its own to handle the wear, well, you've probably noticed that it doesn't do a very good job of it. Epoxy just isn't very abrasion resistant, and chemicals also seem to take a pretty big toll on it after a while. After a few years, the floor just looks dull from all the scratches, and it's pretty disappointing to see a badass metallic floor in that kind of shape. So some kind of urethane or polyaspartic top coat, is going to solve all this, but now we have another problem. These top coats, it can be kind of tricky to apply. Now, that thick coat of epoxy that you put down to create that metallic look, it just does an awesome job of leveling out, and that surface just looks like glass the next morning. Top coats, on the other hand, well, they're a lot harder to get looking like that. Polyaspartic, it sets fast and it just doesn't have much flow to it, and it's really going to take some experience to apply it without leaving some roller marks. Now, honestly, rock hard urethane from Deco-Crete, a whole different story. This stuff has a long working time, tons of flow, and you can put it on a lot thicker than you can polyaspartic, and it does glass out really, really well. Now, the downside is that it becomes pretty susceptible to dust falling down into it as it's flowing out and curing. Rock hard is still one of the best urethanes that I've used for this, and if your customer does insist on a high gloss top coat, it will achieve that for you. They're just going to have to live with a few flaws. Now, besides it being hard to get it looking perfect when you're applying it, the other problems with glossy top coats are that glassy finish, it just highlights every scratch that develops from use. And glossy top coats also tend to be a bit slippery. Now, another option for this is just to apply a top coat that isn't glossy at all. And up until recently, we really only had one option for this, and that was our water-based matte urethane. Now, this is a decent option, but it does turn out completely matte, and we just found out that most people, they do want just that little bit of shine. And water-based urethanes, they're just not quite as tough as the solvent-based options are. Now, the answers that we're looking for are going to all be right inside this little can here. And the beauty of this is that it's an aluminum oxide additive, and we can mix it into a variety of different top coats. Now, don't try to do this with just a standard anti-skid aluminum oxide. That stuff is going to be too coarse, and it's just going to end up looking like you had a bunch of dust falling down into your top coat. This stuff here is ground up a lot finer, and when it's done right, it just leaves that little bit of orange peel texture behind from the roller, and that texture just knocks off most of the shine, and it's a lot less slippery. Now, the aluminum oxide also makes the coating get even harder than it would have on its own, and the best part is, with that little bit of texture, you're just not even going to notice if a little bit of dust falls into it. Now, we usually don't do much on-site stuff here on the Concrete Edge, but today we've got some bonus content for you, and we're going to run through the instructions of how to mix this stuff into rock hard urethane and apply it to a metallic floor. Now, the tools we're going to need are a mixing paddle and a container to mix in, an 18 and a 9-inch roller, and I like the Micro Plush here from Worcester Brush. Now, if you want to dip this urethane out of a pan to apply it, you're going to need one of those as well, and I'm a big fan of using one with a liner, and that way you don't even have to worry about cleaning your pan out after you're done. So as far as the dosage goes, there is a range of how much you can add to your top coat, and so you do have some freedom here. And so don't be afraid to experiment a little bit and just figure out what works best for you. To get started though, I would just stick to the recommended amount, which is 1.5 pounds of aluminum oxide per gallon of urethane or polyaspartic. Now, these are 3-pound jars, and we only need to make about a gallon, so we're just going to add about half of it. Now, you're going to want to be a little more precise than this if you have a big area to cover. If that was the case, I would just recommend using a measuring container. That way you can stay consistent throughout the entire job. Now, even if you are mixing this into something that's single component or a moisture cure urethane like rock hard is, I would still only mix up enough just for that job, because it's going to sink to the bottom and it's going to be really hard to get that stuff all mixed up later. Now, when it comes to the coverage, in order to get this to work, we're gonna need to put this stuff down pretty thin. I mean, you should get at least 400 to even 500 square feet of a gallon out of it, and any thicker than that and you're probably going to end up with a little bit of whitening on your surface. Now, you put it on as thick as you would for a glossy top coat, I mean, that whole thing is going to turn white. Now, onto the application, and we do have two different options here when it comes to applying this stuff. Now, we can dip and roll it out of a pan, or we could just dump it right on the floor and spread it around with a roller. Now, there are pros and cons to both of these methods, and dip and roll would honestly be the easiest way to spread it out thin and consistently, but it does tend to fall to the bottom pretty quickly, and when you have it in a pan, it's just hard to keep it mixed up because you can't really even get your drill back in there anymore. Now, the best way we found to do this is to just only dump a small amount into your pan at a time. That way you can get rid of it all before it has a chance to settle. Then you can drill mix what you have left in the bucket and just keep dumping little bits in the pan at a time. Now, on larger jobs, I mean, this would be the recommended way to apply this. Now, for today's job, it's pretty small though, so we're just gonna dump it out right on the ground and just roll it around. Now, I like to start out by rolling in some of the edges. It's important that the roller touches every part of the floor, and you'll definitely see a difference if you just brush in the edges and you don't hit them with a roller. So the reason that we really love rock hard urethane for this is you have so much time to work with it. You can get the edges looking nice for like half of the room, and then you'll have plenty of time just to work the rest of the floor back into it. Now, applying a fast setting coating, I mean, that's gonna require some extra manpower and you're gonna have to work quickly. I mean, honestly, for today's job, using rock hard, we'd really only need 1 or 2 people for this. Now, no matter how you decide to spread it out, the important thing is to make sure that you cross roll it a time or two just to finish it all off. Now, I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but it's the working time of this urethane that is just really key. So you'll be able to see that texture that the roller leaves behind immediately, and with rock hard, you can just keep rolling it until you have it just right. Faster set coatings are just not gonna give you this option, and going back up into something that's been down for 10 minutes or so, I mean, it is gonna leave a nasty mark, and just don't talk yourself into it. So after you get it all rolled out, just make sure to follow the directions on dry time for whatever product that you might be using. I mean, this will make the coating harder, but it won't make a slow coating move faster. Well guys, that's pretty much it for today's show. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and man, we really appreciate all the support that you guys show to the channel by tuning in every week and always hitting those little like and subscribe buttons. And please leave us a comment if we missed anything or if you have any questions about urethane top coats. So from all of us here at Deco-Crete TV, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.